Hi. We had a few mishaps with our Facebook Live this morning, and I am determined that this special is going to get its moment in the spotlight. So I've come back to tell you about it again. It's a very special fiction collection of 36 stories taken from our archive. And I explained a bit this morning about how we went up to the archive and the process there. What we did was we chose probably 3 times as many stories as we have in this special. And then we brought them back to the office, and the fiction team got together. And we talked about what we wanted these stories, the message we wanted these stories to relay to the readers that we have now. And it was about these stories representing their moment in time and what readers were feeling and experiencing at these moments in time. So we weighed up all the stories, and it was a really hard process of winnowing them down into, well, if we miss out that story, why are we missing that one out? Is this one really better? Does it tell something different? Does it give something different to the reader? So it was a really hard process. We eventually got down to 36 stories, which is what you've got here. And quite naturally, I have my favourites. One of them I talked about this morning, and it's set in just after the war years. I've lost my tab already. The clock goes slow, and it's a woman waiting for her husband to come home from the war. But it's not as simple as that, because we kind of forget that the women went through horrible traumas sometime as well as the men who were experiencing the horrors of war overseas. And it's from her perspective, from her heartbroken perspective really, about how her husband is now going to view her when he comes home, because she's always been perfect and pretty, and she's just not that woman anymore. She's changed a lot. And it's a really poignant story, and it's touched the heart of most of us in here. And that's what we were looking for all of these stories to do, to touch our hearts in some way, whether it was to make us sob a little bit with the characters, or whether it was to make us laugh with them, sympathise with them. They had to touch us as well. And we also touched this morning on quite a funny one. It's called The First Rate Offer, and it's just a bit of fun. It's just silly. It's basically an old-time scam artist going into this shop and trying to get some money out of the shop owner for no good reason at all. And it's just a good balance to everything else, but it shows that some themes are timeless. They've always been like that. And that was another thing that we noticed, that the themes that we have in our modern stories are in these older stories as well. There are classic themes that are timeless and can be retold again and again. And a third story I want to draw your attention to is, it's set in the First World War, and it's only a page, but it's such a poignant page, because it's a love story, a young couple meeting, falling in love. He then goes overseas, and it's about what can happen when a young soldier goes overseas and perhaps doesn't come home. And it's a lovely, poignant little story. And the final one I want to particularly highlight is the one that we chose for the very last story in the magazine, which represents where we're at now with our fiction. And it's a story that was first published just earlier this year. I think it was May or June. And it was actually the writer's first ever story being published by us, which is what we've always been about, giving new writers their big opportunity, sharing their work with you, the reader. And the story is a very modern take on war. It's an ex-military man who is now sleeping rough on the streets, and the woman who encounters him, prejudges him, learns to reassess her feelings about him, and it's a story of optimism and hope. And I think optimism and hope is what The People's Strength has always been about, and it's encapsulated by this collection of stories in this very special collector's edition, which goes on sale on the 2nd of September for £6.99, and it's a bargain.